Hello and welcome to the Miarly CAL. My name is Tanya and I'm going to be helping you to get this ripple part started based on our squares. So in part 2 we work on the ripple section. So always ripples have what's called a peak and a valley. So the peak is at the top corner of our square pieces and the valley is down below between the two squares. So we're going to be using stitch markers to help us with that, and I'll show you how to get this started. So with your square that's on the right hand side of your work, we will join in that corner space. Now I already have worked some ripple on my other side, so try to ignore that, but it's the corner space on the right hand side of our first square. We will join and chain 1. Then we're working a single crochet 2 together in this space. So we pull up a loop and in the first stitch. Now the top of that stitch is hidden a bit in the corner, so make sure you're working in that first stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And we want to place a stitch marker in the top of that single crochet 2 together. Then we're going to single crochet in the next 28 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 27, and 28. So that should be the last stitch before the chain 2 space. Should be the last stitch before the chain space at the top or the peak of our square. In that space we want to single crochet 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we want to mark the second or the middle of those 3 stitches with another stitch marker so that we know where our peak is when we come back on the next row. Then working down this next side of the square, we're going to single crochet in 28, being careful to get that first stitch, which could be hidden by the 3 single crochet in that corner, and we single crochet 28. So that's 3, 4, 27, and 28. So that should leave us with 1 stitch left unworked, and we're going to work a single crochet 4 together. So we insert our hook in that last stitch and pull up a loop, insert our hook into this chain space, pull up a loop, and then we want to work over onto our next square in that same corner space, or that matches up to the first square. We pull up a loop and in the first single crochet, again being careful that it's not hidden. So we should have 5 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 5, and we want to mark the single crochet 4 together because that represents where the valley is, the lowest point of the valley. And then working in the next stitch, we will again work 28 stitches up this square until you get to that chain space at the top of the square where you work your 3 single crochet, marking the second of those 3 single crochet. So I'll let you continue to work on all your squares. I will meet you at the end of our last square of this row. So when you have worked down the side of your last square, those 28 single crochet, you should be left with 1 stitch and then that corner space. Now again, you can see how I've worked my ripple on the other side, so try to ignore that. So we're going to make a single crochet 2 together. So in that last stitch before the space, you pull up a loop, and then in that space, you pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, and again we want to mark this single crochet 2 together. So then for round 2, after we chain 2, we're going to be working on the wrong side of the work. So we're going to skip this marked stitch and double crochet in the next stitch. So our chain 2 and the double crochet we just made counts as a 2 together stitch. So we want to mark the top of that double crochet. That's where we will work into when we come back down the next row. Then we will double crochet in the next 28 stitches. So the 28th stitch will go in that first single crochet that's in the top of the square and just before our marked stitch. So where we have the marked stitch, we are now going to make 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, and the second one, the one I'm just finishing now, we want to pop a stitch marker in there to mark that as our new peak, and 1 more double crochet in that same stitch. So 3 double crochet in our marked stitch from last round, placing the stitch marker in the second or the middle of those 3 double crochet. Then we just work back down the side for 28 double crochet. So when you've come back down the square and you get close to the valley here, the 28th single crochet, you should have 1 stitch left after that one. So we're going to yarn over, and in that next stitch we will pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And then in that marked stitch, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And then in the next stitch past the marked stitch, we pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, so we should have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 for our double crochet 3 together, and mark that stitch as that's our new valley. And then we just continue to work up the next square, making 28 double crochet. Now when you've gotten to your side edge, the 28 single or double crochet, you should have 1 stitch left before our marked stitch. So we will work a double crochet 2 together. So you just work through the first 2 loops, leaving 2 on the hook, and then inserting into that marked stitch, you pull up another loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through all 3, and marking this stitch. And that's how you work the ripple pattern. So marking these stitches makes it easier to know when you're at the peak and the valley and at your edge stitches. So I'd like to show you row 5 as well. We changed the stitch pattern a little bit and just want to make sure that that works easily for you too. So we chain 2 to start row 5. And we skip this marked stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, and then remembering to place our marker in that double crochet as that's our new edge stitch. Then we will chain 1, skip a stitch, work a double crochet in the next stitch. So we're going to do that a total of 14 times. So that's 1, 2, 13, and 14. So the double crochet at the end of the 14 times is in that stitch just before the marked stitch. We're going to work a V-stitch in this marked stitch. So a V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the same stitch. And that is our new peak. We'll mark that chain 1 space. Then to work down the side, we're going to put a double crochet in this first stitch and then start the chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet, and we'll repeat that for a total of 13 times. Chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet. So I've worked my 13 repeats. We'll chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, 3 together. So in this next stitch, instead of finishing a double crochet, we pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then in our marked stitch, we'll yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. I'll just move that stitch marker now. And then in the next stitch past the marked stitch, we'll pull up a loop as well, yarn over, pull through 2, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and that's our double crochet, 3 together. Mark that stitch, as that is our new valley stitch. We chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, and so on up the next square. So that's row 5. You can continue with that, and I'll meet you at the end of this row to show you how that works as well. As you're coming down your final side to the edge stitch, after your 13 repeats, you'll chain 1, skip a stitch, and then in the stitch just before the marked stitch, we will pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over again into the marked stitch, we'll pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, there's 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that's our double crochet 2 together for our edge stitch. So we will place a marker in that stitch. So I hope that helps, and good luck finishing your ripples.